So in this episode, we're going to be touching on what happens after the laning stage. What do you need to do on your hero in terms of positioning on the map? Where do you need to get your resources that you need to be able to do your job in the game? So most position 4s have like two roles. They have a laning stage responsibility, and then they have in the game, you either have a hero that has a lot of team fight, you have a hero that needs to initiate, you have a hero that is very bulky, that will sit in front and kind of soak the pressure. So there's a lot of different roles you can have, but almost all of them need time to get there. So this is like, how do you get from in the laning stage? Some games you might have a good lane and you might get a lot of gold, you might get a lot of experience, and then this transition is very short, it's very easy. But some games you need more time, more space that your team needs to give you. So that comes in the space of taking the lane. Sometimes it comes in the space of being able to hit neutrals, although it's very rare that you want to hit neutrals as position 4, but if there's no other way to get it, and you need to get a blink dagger, then you have to farm it. So this is going to be touching on how do you do it, like at what times do you want to be farming waves, and then how do you get out of the laning stage. In terms of understanding like what your objective is in the game, it's important to know your hero before the game starts. So this is something you can do, like understanding your own hero pool, understanding the heroes that, let's say you have 5 heroes, they might be very different, but if you know what all of them want to do individually as heroes, like what timings they have, like what is your role on these heroes, like if Tiny is one of your heroes, then you need to get a blink at some point so you can actually initiate for your team, which is the basic role of this hero. If you're playing like a range support, most of the time your role is going to be to secure lane, and then after that you're going to be pushing waves and being like the backup. So this all comes from understanding of your hero. It's not really something that you determine in the game, but more so something that you know about your hero before you get into games. One way to determine how you want to play the map, or like where you're supposed to be as a position 4, it kind of depends on how good your lane is. So let's say you have a hard lane, you need to catch up, maybe you're low level, maybe you need to get your core item. There's usually a space on the map that your carry is going to be farming. It's most of the time going to be the offlane and the enemy's jungle that he's going to be farming. So the offlane is not really a lane that you're going to be in most of the time. Obviously it's situational, but in most cases what's going to happen is that you're playing position 4, you're going to be playing with a core that is enabled in the laning stage. So that means if you're playing with a TA that had a free lane, that TA will go jungle, and that will free up the space for you to take the lane. And that's kind of how you helping the lanes will make so that they give you the lane later on. And you kind of transition from being the one who's helping to be the one that's getting helped by your team. Basically, it's cycling the resources from the early game into something where they can actually farm the jungle, and you have the space to take the lane. So a lot of the time it's going to be mid lane. When your mid laner is going to the jungle, sometimes you're able to get your items and your experience by playing with a high level hero. So let's say your mid hero is like a killer, like a Storm, or basically any hero that helps you kill. If you have a combo with your mid hero, then you can move around with them instead of taking a lane, and you can get your resources in that way. You don't actually have to farm creeps, but you can get it from fighting with a hero that's stronger than you, and you just enable them. So that's another way of getting gold, but most of the time it's dependent on your mid laner, and it's kind of two ways. One of them goes to the woods, and the other is more like plays with you and enables you to get gold and experience from kills and moving on the other side of the map, the enemy side of the map. In this replay, I'm playing Tiny against Pain. This was at the last major, and as you can see, I'm not having a good game. I'm 0-2, and I have a mid laner in this game who's a Storm. And the good thing about Storm is that he can kind of do two things. Storm can go woods, and he can also help you kill. So in this game, I took mid lane and I died. They went on me and killed me. The good thing for me is that my team is ready and they get counter kills, and this is obviously good for the whole team. It's not very good for me because I died before anything happened, and it means I get no gold towards my blink. But at the same time, you have to make some sacrifices. You know, if it's a good trade for your team, that's just how it is. You have to rely on your team to be able to abuse that the opponent is going too far to mess up with your game. So I TP back mid. I try to take this lane to get as much resources as possible. I don't want to sit on this lane too long because the other team is playing aggressive. So I'm taking this wave, and I want to push it fast so that I can help my team if something happens. So they all died right now, and I know they will be TPing in, and this lane is kind of not very safe anymore because they just spawned and we killed them bot. So I push the wave fast all the time. As soon as I can, I use both my nukes because I don't want to sit on the lane too long because that makes them able to kill me. So here we make a team move. I die again, but we got the tower, and I gave a lot of information to my team. This is something that you can't underestimate too, is if you die like this, and it might slow down your timing, but what it does is that my entire team, we're all here taking the tower. I want to make sure that we get the last hit. I didn't get it, the Windrunner got it, but we see 4 heroes here. That means my Slug is fine to farm here, he's not really scared. My Storm is fine to farm here, and my Venomancer can sit bot. So it's a lot of information, and even though I died for it, it still gave something to my team, you know? Here I TP bot. At this point, I can't really sit mid because we don't have a ward around here. It's really scary, and my Storm is already in place to take the farm. So I could TP mid in this position and take this farm towards my blink, but it will be very bad for our team because Storm is already here, he doesn't need to TP to take this farm, and my Venomancer is in a spot bot where he needs backup. So sometimes you have to, even though I really want to get the blink here, I have to slow down my personal timing because if I sit down here, my entire team can farm this area. All of this is very easy to farm because me and Venomancer are sitting bot. So this is an example of, you can get like your timing slowed down a lot, but it can be worth it in terms of like your team's resources. And then you obviously, this game I have to rely on Abed to be able to make plays because I won't have my blink dagger for the early fights because I don't have a great game. But that's just how it is. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices on your own hero so that some core can make the plays for you in the early game. In terms of figuring out like what your hero is supposed to do in the game and like what is the role that your team needs you to do, I think it comes from understanding your hero and making sure that there's a predetermined idea about why you're playing this hero, like what do you want to do for your team, and also making sure that the players you're playing with understand in the draft that this is what your hero wants to do. In this game where my purpose is to initiate, but at the same time, the way the game played out, I'm not in a position where I'm going to be able to initiate early on because I kind of sacrifice my game so that my cores have a better time. You know, like when the other team goes on you mid, they kill you mid, and then you die, but your team gets 2 kills on 2 cores. That is a trade you have to take. Like every time it presents itself, you have to take that trade. But it means that your initiation timing is slowed down. If you're the main initiation and you're not a core, and you're dying, it means that you need to have a core who's able to do the same thing as you. It's pretty hard to play position 4 if you have no cores that are able to make plays, because then there's too much responsibility on your hero, you know? It happens sometimes if you're playing like Earthshaker, because Earthshaker is a hero that's very reliant on Blink Dagger. Tiny, not so much, because he still has a toolkit that enables him to play the game, whereas you can run behind somebody, you can toss them in. You can toss your own core and it's basically a free Blink Dagger. So some heroes are more item dependent than others, and Tiny is like, he's not super dependent on his timing. So it's more acceptable for me in this specific case to be dying for my team to get something, because I am still able to help them make plays. But in some cases you have to be very careful and you have to be greedy in the way you farm the map. Like you might have to hold the lane statically instead of doing what I did in this game where I pushed it fast because I didn't want to stay on the lane. Sometimes you have to hold it so that you get 2 or 3 more waves than you would have. It's just about understanding. It's not only about understanding your own hero, but also like what does your team need. So let's say you're playing Earthshaker and you think you need Blink, but your team already has like another way of initiating. You might not need the Blink that badly, and it might, if you show on a lane that's sitting statically, let's say I'm holding the lane here on Shaker, on Radiant, and I'm just farming, it's very hard for my team to play the game on the other side of the map because I'm showing here, which means I'm going to stall my team's farm. But I might not need to do it if I have a Storm that can initiate for me. So it's not only about your own hero, but also understanding like what can your team do for you. So if you're the only initiation and your team also needs you to initiate, then obviously you need to take the space and farm. Okay, so in this game that I'm showing you now, I'm playing Nyx against Secret. And Nyx is a hero that you have a timing with experience, which means after the laning stage, Hopefully you're able to get your level 6, because that's the way you can help your team. That is the way you open up the map, and that's the way you make space. It's good because that means you don't need a blink dagger, you don't need any gold that makes it so that you need to, like, you need this gold for you to be able to help your team. So in this game, I'm playing Nyx. You're dependent on your ulti's cooldown. In this situation, I have an invis rune, but it's basically the same thing as my ulti. And we force these guys to react to what we're doing. And they're in our jungle here. Secret is playing in our jungle. And we're here ready to kill them. Usually on my hero, after laning stage, like in the tiny game, I would have to take a lane, like Yabsor is doing here. He's taking the lane. He wants to get his meteor hammer, right? But I'm here, I'm able to help the team because my hero is experience-based, and I'm level 8. So basically what is happening here is that I'm able to free up this jungle for the Racer to farm because I'm playing in front of him with my invis. And this is just to showcase that some heroes, you need to take a lane and you need to farm your item. If you have an important item for your team, it can blink dagger. In this case, Yabsor, he needs his meteor hammer, so he's farming. With Nyx and some other heroes that are very experience-based, you have a timing at minute 10 because you get tome, and that means that you don't need your blink dagger or your like the Treant in this game needs meteor hammer. If you're Nyx, you're very experience-based, and you can do what you need to do just based off basically time and not gold, you know. So you don't actually need to take out of the map for your team. It means that my Racer can farm all of this, and that I have the space to move in front of him. Meanwhile, this Treant has to show mid, and it means that they have one player less on the map. Basically, just a less greedy type of war, because you want to stay off map as much as possible. Now you see here in this situation, my ulti is on cooldown, which means I can't really go here. It doesn't really have a purpose for me, because I don't have my invis. So at this time, I decide to take the mid lane because I'm trying to get my vessel. The vessel in this game is important for us because they have Timber and Wisp. So it's just about doing what you can do with what you have. So in this situation, like as soon as I have my ulti, what I should be doing is I should be running here again and clear this out for my Racer. Because you see, as soon as I'm not here and he doesn't have I'm not in my ulti, they have this control of this jungle. You see, they're sitting here with Nyx or with Tree and Slark, and now I should be doing something with my ulti. Right now I'm not, but I should be. We're running here for the outpost, and we see the Tree TP. So at least something's happening, but I should be doing something with my ulti. So I think what's gonna happen here, I'm gonna move back. Actually, we take a fight here. I use my ulti for this. So we took a fight, that's fine. And I think we got Roche. So you saw at the time where I don't have my ulti, you need to still, even if you play heroes that want to be off map, if you don't have your spells or whatever enables you to be off map, you can take lanes and you can get your item timing, you know? Yeah, so I think the most important thing when you talk about transitioning out of lanes is the difference between what enables you to do something. So we talked about if you need gold in terms of a blink dagger to make sure that you can get your initiations, then you need to farm it. It means you need to show on lanes. It means you need your team to make space for you. If you're playing heroes like Nyx, like I showed, who are very experience-based, you can be off-map way earlier. You don't have to take as many creeps from your team, and it becomes way less greedy. It's like a much faster position 4, and it kind of enables you to help your team before later on in the game. You don't need the time to take a lane. You don't need to farm 2,200 gold, which is it takes to get a blink dagger. So it's basically 5 minutes, usually 5 to 10 minutes, where you have to farm a blink, and if you don't need to, then you have 5 to 10 minutes where you can keep the pressure up, and your transitioning out of the lane is very more fluid.